The night I asked for his daughter's hand, he laughed in my face and threw the ring across the table like it was garbage. 5 years later, that same man sat across from me, begging me to save his company. And the woman who made that meeting happen, she was the one person he never saw coming. If you've ever been told you weren't enough by someone who thought money made them better than you, stick around. Hit subscribe before we start, because trust me, you're going to want to see how this one ends. My name's Cole. Back then, I was 23, working 2 jobs just to stay afloat. Days at the hardware store, nights delivering food in a car that made this rattling sound every time I hit 30 miles an hour. I wasn't ashamed of it. I was building something, slowly, quietly. Night classes at community college, business degree, telling myself one day I'd have something real. And then there was Brooke. Brooke came from money, real money. Her dad owned a construction and real estate company with his name on half the buildings downtown, but she never acted like it. She'd sit in my beat-up car eating gas station tacos like it was a 5-star meal. She asked questions about my classes like she actually cared about the answers. She looked at me like I already was enough. That's rare. When you find someone who looks at you like that, you hold on. I saved up for 3 months for a promise ring. Nothing fancy, just something that said, "I'm serious about you." I remember sitting outside her parents' house, rehearsing what I'd say, hands actually shaking. I was so nervous. Her father, Gerald, never liked me, looked at me like he was pricing out a used car he had no intention of buying. But that night at dinner, I told myself, just be respectful, be yourself. It started fine. Then Gerald asked about my plans. I told him about school, about wanting to start my own company someday. Real estate, maybe. Something that would let me build things instead of just working for someone else. He laughed. Not loud. Worse. Cold. The kind that makes the whole room go quiet. "You'll never be good enough for my daughter," he said, flat, like he was reading off a grocery list. Then he saw the little box in my jacket pocket, reached over, grabbed it right out of my hand, and threw it on the table like it was trash, like 3 months of saving meant nothing. Brooke was crying, trying to defend me. Gerald cut her off, told her she had to choose him or some delivery boy with no future. I didn't fight, didn't yell. I stood up, said thank you for dinner, and walked out into the rain. Wait, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I stand up for myself right there? Truth is, some battles you can't win with words, not when the other guy owns the room. So I made a promise to myself, standing there soaked to the bone. One day, I said, I'll come back. Not like this, not small. Brooke called me that night, crying, said her dad was threatening to cut her off completely, control her tuition, her car, her apartment. I told her I understood. I wasn't going to make her choose me and her whole family. Hardest phone call in my life. I left the city, packed my car, moved 2 states over where my buddy Denny had a couch and a construction job lined up. Denny was loud, blunt, loyal to a fault. Told you the truth even when you didn't want it. Here's the thing nobody tells you about starting over. It's not one big dramatic moment. It's just Tuesday after Tuesday after Tuesday. Work all day, class all night, fall asleep at the kitchen table with the textbook still open. The first year almost broke me. I pitched our first real client on a small flip, and he backed out 2 weeks before closing. Took the deal to somebody with an actual track record. That was half our savings gone in one phone call. There was a stretch where Denny and I couldn't cover rent in the office we were renting out of, so we just didn't sleep home. Slept on a fold-out couch in the back room, showered at the gym down the street, told our first 2 employees we were working late so they wouldn't ask questions. I walked into 4 different banks that year, asking for a small business loan. Got told no 4 times.
Same reason every time. No collateral, no history, too much risk. I remember sitting in my car in a bank parking lot after the fourth rejection, just staring at the steering wheel, thinking maybe Gerald had been right about me all along. Denny found me there an hour later. Didn't say much, just said, "Get out of the car, we're not done yet." That was the night I almost quit. I didn't, but I came closer than I ever told anyone. There were nights I wanted to call Brooke and say, "Let's just run." I didn't. Quitting would have proven him right.
About a year in, I got a voicemail. Brooke's number. One I hadn't deleted no matter how many times I told myself to. I sat in my car in a parking lot for 10 minutes before I could even play it. She said she missed me, said her father was pushing her towards someone else, someone acceptable, and she didn't know how much longer she could hold him off. I never called back. Not because I didn't want to, because I had nothing to offer yet. No house, no company, no proof that leaving her that night meant something. So I let it sit. Let her go, at least on the outside, while I put my head down and worked. Denny and I started our own thing not long after. Small jobs first, flipping properties, doing honest deals while bigger firms cut corners. Word spreads fast when you treat people fairly in an industry that usually doesn't. First big contract came 2 years in, then another, then we were hiring instead of getting hired. Gerald, meanwhile, was everywhere I looked, even when I didn't want him to be. His name on a ribbon cutting in the local paper, a photo of him grinning next to a new development, quoted saying his company was built on family values. His billboards went up along the interstate I drove every week for work, his face 40 feet tall, smiling down like he owned the road too. Every time I saw one, it was like getting that same cold laugh all over again. I never said anything about it, just filed it away. Somewhere in there, a mutual friend mentioned Brooke was engaged. That one hurt. I didn't chase her, didn't call, just sat with it and went back to work the next morning, because that's what building something requires. No time to fall apart. Then, right when things were finally moving, we lost a bid we should have won, a city redevelopment contract, hours on paper, gone overnight to a firm with half our experience. Took me weeks digging through public records to find out why. Whitcomb Construction had made a call to someone on the review board. Nothing illegal, just a favor, a word in the right ear, enough to bury us quietly. Gerald didn't even know my name yet. He wasn't blocking Cole. He was blocking a competitor, the same way he'd blocked anyone smaller than him his whole career. I remember reading that email chain at 2 in the morning and just laughing, not because it was funny, because it proved something. He didn't have to know who I was to try to keep me down. That was just who he was to everybody.
We didn't fight it, didn't call it out publicly. Denny wanted to go to the press. I said no. We rebuilt the bid, went after 2 smaller contracts instead, and let the work speak instead of the story. 6 months later, we had 3 contracts to their 1. Nobody ever knew we'd been the ones he tried to bury. What I didn't know then, what I wouldn't find out for years, was that Brooke had never really let go either. She turned down 2 other men her father tried to steer her toward before that engagement even happened. She kept a folder of local business clippings, anything with our company's name in it, and she never told a soul why. She told a friend once, offhand, that she didn't think she'd ever feel about anyone the way she felt sitting in a rattling car eating gas station tacos. She just didn't say who she meant. By 28, our company had a real name. Not flashy, respected. And I kept a folded photo of Brooke in my wallet the whole time, never told anyone it was there. Then, one Tuesday, my assistant dropped an emergency file on my desk. A regional firm drowning in debt, needing a buyout before the bank stepped in. Whitcomb Construction Group. My stomach dropped. I sat there a full minute staring at the name. I told my team I'd handle this one myself, didn't explain why. Gerald walked in, wearing a suit that used to cost more than my old car, but had hung on him different now. Grayer, older, hands not as steady when he shook mine. He didn't recognize me.
5 years, a beard, 30 pounds of actual labor instead of a desk job changes a face. He started his pitch, slides on the screen, numbers, projections, the usual desperate sales talk you give when something's already sinking. I didn't say much, just let him run through it, nodding here and there, flipping slowly through the file in front of me, like I was still deciding whether this meeting was even worth my afternoon. He kept talking, filling silence the way people do when they're scared of it, told me about the company's 30-year legacy, about how this was just a temporary cash flow issue, about how any partner would be lucky to get in early. I let him say all of it. Then, I asked a question, quiet, simple. Where were you 5 years ago, Mr. Whitcomb, when this company was still solid? He blinked, thrown off by the phrasing, started to answer, stumbled, tried again. I closed the file, looked up at him for the first time since he'd sat down. You know, I said, real calm. Someone once told me I'd never be good enough for anything that mattered. He paused. Something flickered behind his eyes. I decided to prove them wrong.
His face cracked, slow, like ice giving way. "Coal?" he whispered. I didn't answer right away. Let him sit in it. For a long few seconds, nobody said anything. His hand, the one that had shaken mine so confidently 10 minutes earlier, was resting flat on the table now, and I watched it start to tremble. His eyes moved from my face to the file in front of me, to the window, back to me, like he was trying to find some version of this that wasn't real. I watched 5 years of certainty drain out of him in real time. The man who once looked at me like I was nothing was now looking at me like I was the only thing standing between him and losing everything. He opened his mouth twice before anything came out. That's when the door opened and Brooke walked in. She stopped dead, hand over her mouth. And here's the part I didn't see coming, the part that changed everything. This whole meeting, this whole file landing on my desk, it wasn't random. Brooke had seen our company in a local business feature 2 years back, saw my name in the caption, and never forgot it. When her father's company started drowning, she was the one who quietly pushed the board towards us, not her father's idea, hers. She'd been keeping tabs on me from a distance the whole time, and she was never actually married. The engagement fell apart 8 months in. She couldn't go through with it. Gerald started stammering, trying to backpedal. Things were different back then. I was just protecting my daughter. Desperation dressed up as an apology. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything back on the table like he once did to me. Didn't need to. Then Brooke stepped forward, reached into her bag, and set something small on the table between us. The ring box. The same one, scuffed at the corner now, a little worn. She'd picked it up off the floor after I left that night, 5 years ago, when everyone else had gone to bed. Kept it in a drawer ever since. Never told her father, never told anyone. Nobody said anything for a long moment. Gerald just stared at that box like it was the first honest thing in the room. I told him I'd review the numbers and get back to him within the week. That night, Denny asked what I was going to do. Part of me, small and bitter, wanted to let it collapse just to balance the scales. But I didn't build everything I built to become the same kind of man who throws a ring across a table. So we saved the company. On our terms, full restructuring, full transparency, Gerald no longer at the head of it, just a name on a wall now, not a hand on the wheel.
And he had to sit across from me one more time, alone, no suit doing the talking for him, just a man finally admitting, out loud, that he was wrong. That pride cost him more than money ever could. That wasn't a slap, it was quieter than that. And it hit harder. Denny came by the office the day the restructuring was finalized, dropped a six-pack on my desk, like he always did when we closed something big. He looked at the signed paperwork for a long second, then at me. 5 years ago, that man wouldn't let you sit at his table, he said. Now he needed your signature just to keep the lights on. He didn't gloat about it, just shook his head, cracked open a bottle, and said, "Guess we're not the delivery boys anymore." It was the first time either of us really laughed about the whole thing. Brooke and I talked after, really talked, about everything, about what almost was, and what still could be. I told her about the promise I made standing in the rain that night, the one I never told anyone about. She told me about the folder of clippings, about turning down men her father approved of because none of them ever once asked about her the way I used to. "I never stopped checking if you were okay," she said. "I just didn't know how to tell you without it being about him." I didn't have some perfect line for that. I just told her I was glad she never stopped. She still had that ring box in her bag when she left that day. I noticed she didn't put it back in a drawer this time. I don't know exactly where this goes yet, but for the first time in 5 years, I wasn't the one walking away in the rain. 5 years ago, he told me I wasn't good enough for his daughter. Today, he had to trust me with his entire future. Success wasn't my revenge. Becoming the man he said I'd never be, that was. If this story hits you the way I think it did, let me know in the comments. Would you have handled it the same way, quiet and calculated? Or would you have said something the second you walked into that room? I want to hear it. Hit like if you believe karma doesn't need to shout to be heard. Share this with someone who needed it today. And subscribe, because next week, I've got another one that's going to hit even harder.